Kia ora. I've just created this awesome 3D printed name tag at the Auaha Makerspace. Watch the rest of this tutorial to find out how. For this project, we're going to need a few things. We'll need a computer for our design work. In this case, we'll be using this handy laptop. We're also going to need a 3D printer, and luckily, we have one sitting right over here. This is a Bamboo P1S FDM extrusion-based 3D printer, which should be perfect for the job. Because we're going to be printing in two colors, we're going to need two different types of filament. In this case, we're going to be using PLA filament, and this should be perfect for the job. So in this case, I'm going to be using text for this, but you can actually use this with any vector graphic, which makes it very versatile. We're going to open up Inkscape, which is a vector design software. This will be useful for creating our graphics. We'll just go ahead and click New Document. And here is Inkscape. Starting with, I'm going to create just a simple name using the text tool over here. This is the capital A icon on the left-hand panel. And I'm just going to type Auaha. All right. Now that's not really fancy enough for me. I'm going to go ahead and choose a different font. So I'm going to select all of my text with Control A and just come down this list to choose which font I want to use. Now I've downloaded a font here which looks quite nice in my case, so I'll be using this one here. All right, I've just changed here to the selector tool and sort of centered this on the page. That's not super important, but let's zoom in by holding Control and just using the mouse wheel. Okay, here you can see our font nice and clearly. We have this word Auaha. Because I want to create a backplate as well, I'll duplicate this with Control D. You can see I now have two copies. I'll leave them sitting one on top of the other. What I will do, however, is I'm going to change the color of this top one. So we'll just drag this red color over to here where it says fill. You can see we now have a red top. I'll select the underneath layer in the Layers and Objects panel, and I just want to make this one a little bit thicker so that all of the letters are connecting for that version. That way, when we 3D print it, that backplate will hold things together, as currently, these parts would all just fall apart. So I'm going to choose Path and Outset, and you can see that that just makes the stroke thickness around the edges a little bit thicker. I'll do that a few more times until we've gotten rid of all of these gaps. So that looks perfect. Maybe just one more. Yeah, I like that. It's got a nice solid outside now. Just for the moment, I'll turn off the visibility of this top layer, and you can see I have this little section inside here, which it might be nice to get rid of. So to do that, I can just select this shape and go to Path, Break Apart. And now I have this little point here, which I can just delete. Okay. We can bring back our top text and see that we have this nice solid piece at the back and our red text on top. Now there is one more thing I want to create. I want to create a loop that will allow me to attach this name tag to a lanyard or something like that. So let's go ahead and use this ellipse tool over here. And I'm just going to drag out, and while I'm dragging, I'll hold Control, and I'll also hold Shift. And we just want to make that maybe something like this. It looks pretty good. Okay. Now we need to position that where we want it. In this case, I'm actually going to position it at the top, something like this. And this just means that I can have this name tag hanging the correct orientation from a lanyard. Now I'm going to duplicate this circle with Control D once again. In this case, I'll make the top version black so I can see the difference. And I'm just going to click and drag on this little arrow here while holding Control and Shift to make an inside circle. Okay, so we're going to use a difference mode to take away this shape. So selecting both of these circles with Shift, we can go to Path, Difference to create this nice little donut. And I'm just going to put that right here, and that's perfect. So by combining this circle with the backplate, I have a nice piece that will keep everything together. So we'll select both of these shapes and go to Path Union. And there you go. You can see we've got these two shapes now, and we're actually ready to save and head on over to 3D printing. There is one more thing I'll point out though. You can see our text is still currently considered a text layer. So I will just select that one and I'll go to Path and then Object to Path. There we go. You can see these are both paths now. So sometimes the different software prefer these to be paths instead of text. Let's save this now. We'll go to File, Save As, and we'll choose SVG file. You can see I've got one here saved earlier. We'll just overwrite that one. Maybe we'll call it version 2, just to be safe. And there we go. We've saved that now, and we're ready to move along to Bamboo Studio. All right, let's jump on over to Bamboo Studio. Here's the desktop icon. We'll just wait for that to load up. All right, here we are in Bamboo Studio. I'm going to click on this Prepare tab, and then we're going to find our file that we just saved as an SVG, and just simply drag that in. Here we go, clicking and dropping. One of the nice things about Bamboo Studio is it can create 3D models from SVG files simply by giving them thickness. As usually, an SVG file is just simply a 2D vector graphics file. All right, so clicking over to this Objects tab, you can see I now have 2 objects in here. We've got the backplate, and we've also got the text. Currently, these are actually combined into one main piece. So we're going to right-click on that piece and go and find Split, and split them to objects. Okay. So now we can manipulate these individually without affecting the other part. I'm going to take this backplate first of all and jump over to the Scale tool, shortcut is S, and I can go ahead and just scale this nice and flat. Something like this. I don't need it too thick. I'm thinking maybe even just something like 1 millimeter thick should be plenty. You can see when I change the number here, because I have uniform scale turned on, it's going to affect all of my X, Y, and Z. So if I untick that, I can give it a specific measurement. So 1 millimeter should be plenty. Okay, I'm going to do the same for my text now. So I'm going to choose the Scale tool once again and just scale this down to something like this. We could go maybe 2 millimeters on this one, 2 millimeters on this one, and that should be pretty good. Okay, just for now, just so we can see clearly, I'm going to create another color in here, and I'll assign this as a color to this guy, so we can nice and clearly see how that's going to look when we print it. We'll be using some different colors, but it gives a pretty clear indication. If we were using an AMS, which we are not today, this would actually be all we would need to do to choose our colors. But because we are not using an AMS, we're going to actually set a manual pause, and you'll see how we do that soon. I'm going to select both of these objects once again and just simply right-click and choose Merge to turn them back into a single object. I think we're pretty much good to go. Now, because we're not using an AMS, I'm going to remove that other color, as it was just to see how that might look. Okay, so let's click Slice Plate, and we can go ahead and see how the 3D printer will slice this into several layers. So just clicking over on the side, you can see each of these layers one at a time. This is going to take 9 minutes to print, and it's only going to use 0.085 grams of filament, which is pretty fantastic. Now, the final thing I need to do here is I need to find the point where I want to change filament, which will be this layer here, layer 6. I'm just going to right-click and add a pause. Now, this is a manual pause, which will allow me time to swap over the filament so that I can resume the print. So we'll slice one more time, and we are now ready to print. Usually you'll get one of the Auaha staff to help you out at this point, but if you're lucky enough, they might let you do this too. So simply going on the screen and choosing Feeding and Load is all we're going to do here. We just need to wait for the print head to heat up to about 190 degrees. And in the meantime, I'm going to push this filament all the way through and wait for it to load. Here you can see we have some filament extruding, so that's all good to go. We're over here on our staff computer now, and we can basically just click Print Plate. But before we do that, let's just make sure it's at the right size. So let's take a look. If I select this object, you can see that we've got about 4 centimeters, 41 millimeters as the overall length. I think that's a bit small myself, so I'm going to just change this one to, let's say 75. And you can see I've got uniform scale turned on this time. So that's nice and big this time. I'm actually going to untick uniform scale and just make it nice and thin again. So we'll just go 2 millimeters for the overall thickness. Let's slice that once again. We probably need to make sure that our automatic pause is at the right layer. It is, so that's great. And now we can just simply click Print Plate and get this printing on our 3D printer. You can see we've hit our automated pause, so this is the time where I swap over the filament. Making sure to use a type of filament that has the same settings. So in this case, I'm using PLA for both, so we shouldn't have any issues. I'm just going to tell it to unload first of all, which shouldn't take too long as it was already nice and warm. After unloading your first filament, simply load in the second, and then we should be good to resume. And now we have a finished 3D print. So let's open the printer and take a look. Ooh. All right. You can see our finished print on the build plate. Just take that off. Awesome. I don't know about you, but I think that looks pretty fantastic. Well, thank you so much for watching this tutorial, and we look forward to seeing you at the Auaha Makerspace sometime soon. Kia ora.